Hey guys, the following video you're about to watch is from one of our challenger coaches in our weekly bootcamp sessions in our Discord, talking about choke points, vision, and dragon. More specifically, how to secure dragon consistently, control it, and therefore win more games through objectives such as dragon. So this is a really good 8-minute macro clip on everything you need to know, whether you're bot lane, mid lane, jungle, or top lane, or support about dragon. Hope you enjoy the video. Let's get into it.
So in League of Legends, the best indicator of what team is winning the game is not the gold, it's not the dragons, but rather who controls more of the map. If you watch any particular game in League and you look at the map, the blue team has like this area and red team has like this area, then it's pretty clear that the red team is winning. Why? Because at the end of the day, League of Legends is a game of resources. The more of the map that you control, the easiest access to resources that you will have. So for example, if you're a red team and you control this, notice how both Herald, Baron, and Dragon are in your territory. Please understand that League of Legends comes from RTS games, right? And in these games, the concept of territory and control is really important, and it's not a coincidence. We don't mention it a lot in solo queue because people just don't realize it, but controlling territories is one of the most key things about League of Legends. And by the way, notice how for supports, if you have wards along this line, you don't really need wards anywhere else because it's impossible, okay? It's impossible that the enemy ever gets past this line without you knowing. Therefore, you know that the enemy is impossible that they are around this area. Unless it's like, you know, like an Evelyn or whatever, in which case the wards don't matter in the first place. So first concept here is gonna be territory control, that you always need to ward in lines. So for example, let's say that Dragon is coming up and you want to set it up, or Baron. A bad red team will ward like in the Dragon itself, right? Wards like this, you have always seen this. Whereas a good team will ward in a line like this, for example, these 3 wards, and then the mid laner will have put a ward here maybe, and these are 3 support wards or whatever, and now you have this line. And this is how having Dragon control looks like, because now the enemy can never pass through this area without you knowing. It's impossible, totally impossible, okay? It's like a checkpoint. The same way as checkpoints in streets work, it's the same thing. And by the way, now you notice why prio starts being relevant to this concept as well, because if red team has prio here, and they are pushing, that also acts sort of like a ward here, doesn't it? Because the minions give you vision here, so now the line is even bigger. And now, all of this territory is under your control, and the dragon is inside of your territory. The best thing you can do in League is make the enemy fight in your territory, okay? When the enemy fights in your territory, they are inherently at a disadvantage just by virtue of how the map and champions work. So if any of you have ever played a game like, you know, Valorant, Overwatch, CSGO, you should be familiar, with the concept of choke points. This means narrow areas in which the enemies will be funneled into. And League of Legends prio and quadrants and territory control are all about choke points, because if the map had no walls, then controlling territories would be pretty impossible, and it would be also meaningless because the enemy could go through any place whatsoever. So this is why you had 2 options. You either make the map have a lot of walls and you have 5v5 players, but if this map have no walls at all, then the game would have to be something like, you know, like 10v10 to compensate. This is why sports that have bigger maps or fields, like, I don't know, like rugby or whatever, they have a lot of players, right? Because you gotta compensate for the fact that there are no walls and there are no choke points, so now the players will create the choke points. But in League, it's only 5v5, and if you notice, the map is quite big for 5v5, so that's why we have so many walls, okay? Compare that to a game like, I don't know, like in StarCraft or whatever, where you have less walls than this. That is why you have like way more units, okay? So why does this matter? Because coming back to the example of controlling the dragon area, for example, the idea is that in the dragon, there are 4 entrances for each team, okay? 2 entrances are team dependent, so like, let's mark them. So this is entrance 1 of blue team, entrance 2 of blue team. This is entrance 1 of red team, this is entrance 2 of red team. And then there are 2 more entrances that are shared between both teams, which are these ones, okay? So let's name this 3 and 4 or whatever, but they are shared. So why is this so important? Because now you begin understanding why the concept of getting prio before objectives is so important. The idea is controlling more territories of the map, remember that, and making the enemy fight in your territory, making dragon part of your territory in this example. So the first and easiest one to contest is the neutral entrances, okay, to the dragon, sorry. Because the neutral entrances to the dragon have what we call the minions and the Brio, and whoever gets the Brio controls that entrance. So for example, if this mid laner is an Asir, and now you know why people draft Asir in pro play so much, this will happen with the minions. And now this entrance, instead of being neutral, this is now a red team entrance. And it's no longer a blue team possible entrance. So the idea is closing out as many entrances as we can. So the first thing we can do is get in Prio, we close out the entrance before the dragon, okay. So now the enemy, something really interesting that happens is that the enemy, notice how these are not choke points. These are what we call open areas, okay. This is what we call an open area. And this is what we call a choke point. Why? Because imagine something like Caitlyn traps or an Orianna ball. They can control a small area like this choke point or an MF ult, but they cannot control this big of a choke point. MF ult is not wide enough for this. Orianna ball is not wide enough for this. So if you want to control the neutral entrance to a dragon, what you need is something like 2 people at the same time, like Orianna plus something else, or like, you know, people will draft Azir Braum or Victor Braum and then like from can wall and then Asir can soldier, something like that, right? This is why we contest. But then you gotta think about what comps like to play in choke points and what comps don't. So first of all, whoever gets the Brio first will control the whole dragon, because then the enemy team, they control the whole dragon, and let's say that red team gets the Brio here. So this happens. Now it's 4 entrances for red team, and the red team can get into the dragon safely, whereas the blue team will be funneled into these choke points. And that is really bad for them, because now they can get hit by a lot of spells. Like most champions in League thrive in choke points. So for example, you know, most control mages, Orianna, Asir, Victor, Vex. Then you have a lot of ADCs that play for choke points, like Misfortune, Caitlyn, Stever. And this is why these ADCs are meta, by the way, as well as getting Prio, of course. Then even a lot of supports thrive in choke points, like Renata ultimate, Seraphine ultimate, Sona ultimate. Anything that thrives when people are funneled like that. Jarvan, Sejuani. And now blue team is exposed to all of those. So where you play and how you set up the territory before playing decides the whole course of the fight. This is what you gotta understand. So if you wanna, in your solo queue games, begin getting dragons more often, what you gotta do is simply cut out these entrances for the enemy team by getting Prio, and then simply control these choke points. One of the main mistakes that I see even Diamond and Master players do is that they will pick something like a mid laner or a support, and then when dragon spawns, they get Prio, and then when dragon spawns, the mid laner comes and starts hitting the dragon. And that's super bad. The only person that realistically needs to help hit the dragon is maybe the ADC, but even he doesn't need to, because the jungle can do it alone usually. What the jungle needs from you is that you control these choke points so the enemies don't contest the dragon. So if you're a mid laner, or if you're an ADC, or if you're like especially support on mid lane would be the top 2, and even top lanes like Gnar, your job is not hitting the dragon, because you're not helping as much as you think, because you will be hitting the dragon, but then the enemy can sneak and now they can contest. Instead, you control these 2 choke points, okay? It's really important that you control this. Same goes for Baron, same goes for any objective like this, okay? So I cannot stress how important choke points are in League of Legends and how much you need to control them. Then
hey guys, if you're still here, you probably really enjoyed this video and you want more. Well, we actually host these sessions live weekly in our Discord. If you want to be a part of the next one, all you have to do is click the link in the YouTube description below and join us on weekends, every weekend, with our challenge coach Sagittarius, who will be running many more classes like this.